Hello there, Peace of Minders. Welcome to Peace of Mind Mountain. My name's Jim. I'm desperately trying to get a shot where I'm not blinded by the sun. Nature and construction sounds going on, so I apologize for that in advance. Today's theme is recognition. It's nice to be recognized for doing hard day's work, or working on something for a long time, working in earnest. And it can be very demoralizing. No, that's not a word. What's the opposite? Demotivational? Disheartening, discouraging. You get the picture. To never be recognized. And wouldn't you know it, most of us don't. Most of us don't get the recognition that we deserve. Probably. We've all thought that at some point or another. We find out, however, if we make a mistake, or you'll bet your life that you'll find that out sooner than you make the mistake. One thing comes to mind is teachers. I woke up this morning and a wonderful person texted me and said, "Happy Teachers' Day, Jim." And I thought, oh, is this a joke or is this a real thing? And I thought, oh, it's crazy what they come up with these days. There's a new day to celebrate every day. But then I Google searched it, and lo and behold, some countries have been celebrating Teachers' Day as far back as the early 20th century, depending on the country. And it officially became a worldwide thing, Teachers' Day, in 1994. A good 10 years before I came here to Tokyo, Japan, to teach. And I've been teaching for 20 years I've already hit my 20... Oh no, it's 20 years this January. And we're in October now, so... I always thought how there's a Veterans Day, people applaud nurses and police, and quite rightly so. They deserve it. But I always thought, how teachers in general, I'm talking primarily about teachers of children, are not recognized, in my opinion. They're not, there didn't seem to be a day for them. Excuse me while I just drink some of this. So it was nice, after 20 years of teaching children, to finally be... That little comment, that little text, worked wonders. So I thank that person. But it got me thinking about just the state of teaching children in general. I think that teacher and parent, even if you don't have kids and you're not a teacher, I think it's almost common knowledge that teaching, the education system, is in question. And I always wonder, are we making advancements, or are we going back in time? Or where are we headed as far as that's concerned? I fear that since the pandemic, schools will become extinct one day. I might not see it in the near future, but I think that schools are going to become altogether extinct. I really believe that. And what with the dramatic spike of mass shootings that happen in the US of A, are the two linked? Well, I don't know. But I can imagine that homeschooling is going to become more and more popular. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. However, that isn't really why I wanted to talk today. The reason I wanted to talk was because of the recognition, as I mentioned. And today I'd like to recognize two people. I'd like to remember my favorite teacher of all time, Mr. Millard. And I've told this story 100 times, probably at least twice on some YouTube episode. But nevertheless, my favorite teacher of all time was Mr. Millard. Thinning white hair, glasses, handlebar mustache. World War II RAF, Royal Air Force, fighter pilot. I think he fought in one of those famous ones, you know, what's it called? Dunkirk, that's it. If you've seen the film Dunkirk, Mr. Millard was one of those fighters. And to live through that and to end up teaching me in his final year of teaching, he taught me and a bunch of oddballs. And we were known as the worst class of the school. We were famously known as the worst class. We just couldn't get it together. We had zero teamwork. We thought we were okay, but we were happy in our own little way. But we also knew every from grade 1 upwards knew. They used to point at us and say, it's not them. We were an eccentric bunch. But I remember almost every day of that year. It probably didn't hurt that I had a meeting, when I had my first meeting with him and my mother, and they met for the first time to say, this is your new teacher, have a talk with him, he'll be teaching your son for the next year. And he was terribly British. You know, if you think I've got a typically British voice, this guy had nothing on me. And he was he was a Renaissance man. He could do everything. He could paint. He taught us how to play cricket off his own bat, no pun intended, but a good pun all the same. He was the only teacher to teach cricket at the school. Not all British schools teach cricket, by the way. In my experience, very few actually take the sport seriously. You have to find it elsewhere, especially in the north in Scotland. Feel free to disagree with that in the comments. He played the accordion. He would teach us to sing while playing the accordion. He was the main band choir leader, I'm looking back on it. Anyway, that meeting he had with my mom and me, he always wore a shirt, handlebar, waxed mustache, as I said, very typical of the time, of his generation. Always twirled his mustache. James McGee, do you play the bugle? No, sir. You must learn. My best friend's name was James McGee in World War II. Whether he lived, I don't know. But it's just by coincidence. It's not anything divine or anything, but it was just to hear that. There was something cool about that. There was something magical about that. And I was like, wow. I was just nice. Nothing more complicated than it was just a cool thing. I was always sad that we were his last class. But I've forgotten most of my teachers. I've phased them out. Tried to forget most of them. tried to forget nearly all of them. My first teacher was pretty good, Mrs. Downing, I think her name was. Anne Downing, something like that. It was a weird double thing. Anne Downing or something like that. But Mr. Mullard, I feel like I can recall every single day he taught us. And the reason why is because he was a great human being. I know I certainly haven't killed any Nazis for my country recently. To do that and then teach. And he taught us so much more than the curriculum. And that's what always inspired me. There's always more to it than just the book. Use the book as your guiding light, as your guide rope, but it's the true gentlemen and ladies who can think outside the box and to teach life. And when you consider that there were other teachers who were, I think a lot of people would prefer like a female teacher for their elementary school child, or a young teacher. But I say go with experience and knowledge. He was a legend in his own time, and it was an honor to know him. So he must have passed on by now, sad to say, as it was 40 years ago. So R.I.P. Mr. Mullard. May you ever rest in peace. God love you. And finally, I'd like to say a happy birthday to my favourite teacher on this Teacher's Day, to my partner in crime, Creasy Parker, who I make Those Were the Days with. I'll put a link in the description below. This has been a super happy, long episode of Peace of Mind for Those Are the Days. My name's Jim, and I hope together we can find peace of mind. Catch you next time.